Hello and welcome to Business Week, the program that brings you top business stories that made the headlines during the course of the week, including special news features, market data, and much more. Welcome to the show. Here's the highlight of the biggest stories we tracked for you over the course of this week. On the local front, the Debt Management Office has offered 150 billion naira bonds for subscription for this month. The Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission report has also shown foreign investment into the country has dropped by 27.5% for the first quarter of this year. Nigeria so far has spent 40.94 trillion naira on the importation of manufactured goods between January 2017 and March 2021, earning only just about 4.22 trillion naira on the export of manufactured goods within this 5-year period. On the international front, China has resolutely opposed the addition of 23 Chinese entities to a U.S. economic blacklist over issues including alleged human rights abuses and military ties. And talking about summer inflation report, U.S. consumer prices increased by the most in 13 years in the month of June amid supply constraints and a continued rebound in the cost of travel-related services from pandemic-depressed levels as the economic recovery also gathered some momentum. British inflation, on the other hand, has also jumped further above the Bank of England's target in the month of June when it hit 2.5%, its highest since August 2018, and also up from the 2.1% recorded in May as the economy bounced back from coronavirus lockdowns. It's now time to bring you our special packages by our correspondents. We begin with reports from the oil and gas industry with a quote that states that OPEC's creation, well over 60 years ago, has contributed a lot to the development of Nigeria's oil and gas industry, as the global oil market would have been a case of winner takes all. Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timothy Silva, made this remark at a news conference in Abuja while extolling the benefits of Nigeria's partnership with OPEC. Celestina Iria has the details.
It is the golden anniversary of a successful partnership between Nigeria and the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. 50 years ago, at the 24th meeting of OPEC conference in Vienna, Austria, Nigeria was admitted into the organization as its 11th member country. Nigeria's decision to join OPEC has paid dividends, influencing the growth and contributing to the survival of its oil industry. OPEC has, in its 60 years existence, stabilized the oil market to the benefit of producers, consumers, and investors. The Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timothy Silva, noted that but for OPEC's existence, many countries like Nigeria would have been struggling to develop their oil industry due to stiff competition. OPEC's role in stabilizing the oil market has helped strengthen shared values and protected the interests of member countries.
Cooperation between OPEC member countries has made it possible to accommodate all players in the oil production industry. This has promoted the development of Nigeria's oil industry and underlines the importance of Nigeria's OPEC membership.
OPEC quota for June 2021 is pegged at 1.554 million barrels per day production. Nigerians are assured that the last ministerial meeting with member countries, which was halted, would not in any way affect the price of crude oil. As a way of expanding the country's gas industry, the Morocco-Nigerian gas pipeline is still at the feasibility study stage. The minister insisted that the removal of subsidy is desirable for the growth of the country. And also, when the president eventually assents to the petroleum industry bill, subsidy will become a thing of the past, as it is captured in the bill that petroleum should be sold at market price.
And in this next report, the Federal Operations Unit Zone A of the Nigeria Customs Service has intercepted a large consignment of petrol along the sea border stretch between Nigeria and the Republic of Benin. Now, the petroleum products loaded in more than 4,625-litre kegs sums up to about 144 seizures recorded by the command in the second quarter of this year. TVC News correspondent Ifunanya Eze reports.
Operatives of the Federal Operations Unit Zone A have extended confrontations with smugglers beyond the land to the sea. The acting comptroller, Usman Yahaya, says that the dimensions it deployed in the command's anti-smuggling strategies enabled intelligence that led to the interception of the 116,000 litres of premium motor spirit, an equivalent of 3 tankers.
This is the nature of the seizure. And this is how these things were being packaged by the people so as to make it easier for them to cross it across. That is how they smuggle it. And in fact, these things were being seized in Tosovi, that is in Badagry, along Seme.
He reveals that further confrontation with smugglers along the Oyo and Idi-Iroko land border axis led to massive seizure of more contraband goods, including vehicles, unregistered drugs, tires, containers of semi-processed wood for export, a truckload of fertilizer, packs of compressed cannabis sativa, and more than 14,000 bags of 50 kg foreign parboiled rice loaded in 84 different vehicles with others packed in trucks, and hundreds of other seizures with a duty-paid value of 3.3 billion naira.
This is one of our spectacular seizures, and they were all being intercepted along the land borders areas. And there are 84 different brands of vehicles, and they were all loaded, fully loaded, with 50 kg parboiled rice.
So far, records from the command show that the cumulative duty-paid value of seizures recorded between January and June is 36.4 billion naira, while 23 suspects are to be prosecuted in connection to the smuggled goods.
And now with those reports, we delve into the feature of the show today as we assess reactions that have trailed the federal government's instruction to airline operators in the country to refund the full cost of travel tickets to air passengers after 3-hour delays. Details of this and much more is coming up shortly after this break. So still stay with us. Let's now deal with the crux of discourse today. One of the highlights of the week that was the report that the federal government had instructed airline operators in the country to refund the full cost of travel tickets to passengers after a 2-hour delay. This generated and continues to generate more and more reactions as the days go by. Government's position, as highlighted by the Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, on flight delays and cancellations came up as against the backdrop of public outcry over the phenomenon, especially by air travellers. The minister, who noted that the same rules apply for international flights, said his ministry had started sanctioning some airlines who defaulted on consumer rights and also urges passengers not to be unruly at airports as part of the issues raised. He also made mention of the fact that debts owed by airlines in the country to federal agencies had risen to about 37 billion naira, alleging that despite the fact that Buy Courtney Limited was owing about 13 billion naira, it had not remitted a dime to government coffers for the last 13 years. In a swift reaction, local airlines have also faltered the federal government's order to them to refund tickets of air travellers that experienced flight delays of at least about 2 hours, and have also pushed for conversations, which also has been met with a 3-hour peg. While regretting the inconveniences and cancellations so far, they maintain that the government's intervention failed to consider natural factors that often pose challenges. This is even as the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority clarified that the rule dates back to 2015 and applies to flights delayed by the minimum of 3 hours. Well, joining me now via Skype to discuss this trend and much more, I have Chukwuemeka Achum, the Chief Operating Officer of Jet Support Services. Good to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much, David.
Now, as a player in the industry with an understanding of what has been the trend and communication management between airline operators and air passengers with regards to delays in flight cancellations over the years, do you understand both sentiments being shared behind government's instruction as highlighted by the minister to airline operators versus the call for understanding that a 100% refund is quite a harsh call, especially in these times on the part of the airline operators? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, those the recent announcement by the Minister of Aviation regarding, bounces all around consumer protection, which has been gazetted in our regulations since 2015. So it was just a reinstatement of the policy trust of government. And if you look at it, 80% of the NCAA's revenue are actually from passengers. So the CAA is now looking more or less to progress, from just technical regulation into regulation that covers and protects the consumer, which is more or less the end user who buys the ticket. So yes, the calls by the airlines are understandable. I mean, considering the recent COVID-19 pandemic, everybody is looking to preserve cash, but ultimately, majority of the tasks associated with the Civil Aviation Authority in terms of regulation borders more on protecting the end user, which is the ticket purchaser.
Let's now also analyze from an in-depth perspective cues we ought to take up or learn from international flight practices, understanding the critical element of customer rights, really. And also on the part of customers in clear terms in Nigeria, behaving accordingly, channeling communication properly and also reducing unruly behavior. How do we also address this with the aim of having stricter sanctions and a better compliance level?
Well, the 2 hours cancellation, 100% refund. In my opinion, it's a little bit harsh considering that the airlines are also challenged with some infrastructural challenges like the airports not having enough carousels or having enough the right capacity to handle the traffic. But you can't still rule out the duty of care, which the airlines are bound by. And what these regulations are trying to do is, try to put Nigeria on the same par with the international standards. I agree. Nobody likes to refund cash, but what this is doing is more or less extending the protection offered to the end user, which is the ticket purchaser. So the airlines, in my opinion, would have to communicate properly. This will reinforce the fact that the customer, which is the ticket purchaser, is no longer as unprotected as it used to be. Things are going to change. So you will see a lot of effective communication from the airline. You're going to see a lot of planning. You're going to see a lot of hedges into their scheduling system to ensure that disruptions can be easily covered by rescue aircraft.
And then now shifting away from these back and forth we've had in terms of flight delays and cancellations, let's now look at the aviation sector a little broader. The Delta variant of the COVID-19 continues to throw fresh concerns over the economic impact it would have on international and domestic flights. Well, for some, they say domestic flights wouldn't be necessarily affected as much. But what lessons do you see or mistakes do you think airlines are making, as well as adjustments to aircraft sizes and more within the lines of cost-cutting measures?
If you look at the spectrum of the impact on most airline schedules, you will see that the issue here is with border travel. Nigeria fortunately is blessed with a huge geographical landmass. So there is a lot of inter-border traffic activity, which the domestic airlines are of course leveraging on. Of course, this demand is also characterized by infrastructural challenges, insecurity. So aviation, of course, seems to be the sure bet way of getting to destination on time. And we have gradually seen a rebound in Nigeria. The demand numbers are going way up. The prices are at least 35% higher than the pre-COVID era. So we are looking to we are seeing a lot of rebound, especially in the domestic numbers. However, internationally, with the COVID-19 Delta variant, bouncing back, we're looking at seeing. Officially, there is no communication yet on border closures, but everybody is looking closely to try and understand and see how this can impact our current way of life. So if you ask me, domestically, we've not seen any major effect on the demand numbers due to this recent variant of the COVID-19.
And now, what more do you expect on the part of government in terms of intervention funds? Airlines are still struggling, really, and it remains a tough terrain to maneuver through.
What we've seen with intervention funds, we've seen the government dole out as much as 4 billion. But better than that, what the government has also done is to grant, long-term financing to companies affected by this pandemic via means of an intervention fund. So we've seen very impressive interest rates, such as between 7 and 9%, and spread periods of between 10 and 15 years. So this, hopefully, airlines will be able to refleet to right size compact aeroplanes. We're seeing quite some new generational airplanes coming into play. We're seeing the right sized airplanes, which we've always clamored for. And this is only possible because the government is now actively playing a huge role in bridging that gap between conventional commercial financing and the long-term financing which the airlines need to survive. So this is impressive. Government also needs to do a lot more work in terms of the infrastructure, which is the key thing here. The infrastructure surrounding aviation operations, such as the airports, such as Jet A1 delivery at those airports, government has to look for ways, not necessarily investing in those infrastructures, or maybe look for ways to remove those infrastructures from the current hold of government and opening them up to investment, so that these airports can now truly support the expansion plans of Nigerian airlines.
As part of highlight of the announcement by the Minister of Aviation, Hadisirika, debts owed by airlines in the country to federal agencies have risen, and now the peg is at about 37 billion naira, alleging that despite the fact that Buy Courtney Limited was owing about 13 billion naira, it has not remitted a dime to government coffers for at least 13 years. How do we better manage the billing process in the country, better automate payment systems, and also have mechanisms and sanctions to deal with debt?
I don't think we will ever get to a zero debt situation where the airlines never owe the government. However, what the government is concerned here about is, healthy debt. The NCAA, for example, have put in some measures to ensure that, services are being paid for by the airlines. For example, there is a monthly debt clearance issued to every airline operating in Nigeria. And without that debt clearance, you might not be able to access services from the Civil Aviation Authority. So other service providers, of course, owned by the government, such as FAN or NAMA, must also look at, futuristic ways of having this service provided in such a way that their debts could be collected, immediately. The NCA has also been pushing for uh, this billing system where they plug in an aggregator into the airline reservation systems so that they can easily get value for their 5% ticket sales. The airlines are pushed back, but I believe that is actually coming to stay. And in the not too distant future, we will see a situation where most of all these services could be harnessed or put together and collected through a very simple medium that ensures that the transaction is seamless. So the issue of boycotting, is in court, and it might be difficult for me to comment on that, but what we're beginning to see, especially from the CAA, is a lot of investment going into information technology to see how most of all these debts could, or not debts, the transaction fees which accrue the debts could be collected seamlessly at the point of transaction.
Wrapping up our conversation, we're in the second half of the year already. What direction do you see a forecast swinging towards? Which direction would you say the pendulum is going to move, especially as we look at global shocks remaining out of our control, out of the control of world bodies or even organizations, and also look at conversations along airport infrastructure development and other pertinent issues that would likely make or mar the growth prospects for the sector?
Well, looking at our geography again, you will see that there is a lot of inter-border activity, and I mean, like I said earlier, the major problem with the travel is, of course, the borders. So if you look at Nigeria, you will see that between from Lagos to Sokoto to Port Harcourt to Maiduguri to Asaba, you have that demand space is actually there, and the airlines are profiting from this. It is one regulation covering the entire Nigerian space. So you would, the rebound is already here. The demand numbers are shooting up. We are almost approaching pre-COVID numbers, especially in Nigeria. And well, like you said, with COVID these days, it's a little bit difficult to forecast. But if we're looking locally, if we're looking at our domestic market, the rebound is already here. Airlines are already reintroducing or calling back aircraft from maintenance. Many operators in Nigeria are already operating at very close to pre-COVID numbers, and we're really optimistic that we can continue this strong performance, and hopefully the international borders would all open up, and we could see Nigerian carriers reintroduced into the international skies.
And then your thoughts on concessions as well as maintenance, repair and overhaul facilities as well in the country?
Yeah, the government is really insisting on concession in the airports, and I believe the Minister of Aviation recently announced that the outline business case for the new national carrier has been received, and shortly the government will also be opening up the airports for bid rounds. And in my opinion, I think this is the only way that the Nigerian government can attract the necessary investments required to improve the infrastructures surrounding the airports. As far as an MRO is concerned, like I said, I don't really believe that the government should invest into setting up an MRO. They should do the same way they're going with the national carrier, create the necessary environment, and then, have private sector participate by means of equity funding.
And then what about new airline operators?
Yes, we're seeing a lot of new entrants into the Nigerian aviation space. Well, we cannot yet see if this capital is being attracted from outside Nigeria or this is, domestic funding. but we're seeing a lot of interest in provision of airline services. And I mean, we're of the opinion that if it is run well, there's really no reason why Nigeria we cannot operate a very good aviation space here. The demand is here. I mean, the challenges with traditional infrastructure like roads, insecurity, makes aviation a monopoly when it comes to transport provision. So if not, then why not, David?
Thank you very much for your time on the show today, Chukwuemeka Achim. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much, David. Always a pleasure.
Well, just before we go, here are graphical details of the latest inflation report for the month of June as prepared by the National Bureau of Statistics. And that's it on this edition of Business Week. Many thanks for watching so far. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm David Alabi. Bye for now.